parking thing?
I did not, but 2 times I stopped by the minister. I'm gonna get
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Monroeville's budget work session. Today's Thursday, November 6, 2014, approximately 6:30 p.m. If we'd all kindly rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, Lou.
Right now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll open up public comment on budget issues only. Public comment on budget issue. Please come on up. Please sign in, state your name for the record, sir.
Good evening. I am signed in. My name is John Yakum. I am a resident of Monroeville. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Little. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I was not able to attend last week's budget workshop, but I did watch it with some interest. And one of the things that I think we need to look at as a community is when we're asking the taxpayers to pay for certain services, that we differentiate between essential services and non-essential services, which I believe Mr. Silka 2 years ago tried to draw that distinction in the budget process. There are certain components of our municipality that must be funded based on mandates from the state of Pennsylvania. Police, fire, zoning, hearing, those types of services. Then there's services that have a very broad base of use, things like the library, the park system, where a lot of taxpayers, a lot of different taxpayers are taking advantages of those particular services. When you start getting into services that have a much more narrow base, like the individual programs within the park system, the senior center itself, while the municipality should be paying for the infrastructure, the use of some of the more specific programs probably should ultimately be paid for by the users themselves. For instance, 2 years ago, and I don't have this year's current numbers, 2 years ago, it cost a municipality, based on the budget, approximately $200 per senior for the senior center to operate. But yet, when we invited guests from other communities to use our system, according to the numbers that I saw, we only charged out-of-town seniors $5 for the use of that service. Well, one could argue the value of the senior center to the taxpayers of Monroeville and to the seniors of Monroeville. I don't think it's responsible or fair to expect the taxpayers of Monroeville to pay for a resident of Penn Hills or Plum to use our system. Last month, the animal control officer spoke, and actually I thought he did a very nice job. I initially was on the side that said maybe we should do without animal control. Maybe we should outsource that service. But he did make a credible argument for the existence of his position. But I heard over and over again the members of council talking about trying to control the overtime. Mr. Duncan, I think you made a big deal about the control of the overtime, and I agree with that. And it sounds like a lot of the overtime is in the second shift, and a lot of the overtime is also on Saturdays and Sundays. And he made the argument that since there's animals inside the shelter, that we need to provide for supervision over the course of the long weekends. I agree. In the private sector, when we have a shift that needs to be covered, we bring in a second shift. So what I'm proposing or suggesting to the municipality is that they bid a position that is a second shift that includes Saturday and Sundays for the public works person. That person could cover the animal control on Saturday and Sunday, and I'm sure there are things within a municipality that could be done, probably done more efficiently during the weekend. Cleanup in the parks, cleanup of buildings, all these things could be happening on Saturday and Sunday, and that would eliminate the need for the overtime. There were some questions about the fire department, and I thought some of them were interesting. I got the impression, Mr. Mayor, that the calendar idea is off the table.
Apparently it is.
Okay, it was kind of alluded to last week. I'm glad to see that. I don't think our police departments, our fire departments, our municipal taxpayers' equipment should be used in that kind of a scandalous way. Private organization can certainly do what they want, but the taxpayers' equipment certainly shouldn't be part of that. The idea of billing taxpayers for fire department services came up, and I thought that was an interesting idea. But when you bill an insurance company, ultimately we as the taxpayers are paying for it through increased premiums. We send our emergency vehicles frequently out of town. We are frequently within the first or second response of out-of-town calls, whether it be for EMS or fire protection. While I certainly do not begrudge a community calling us when there's an emergency, if we are part of their standard response, then it certainly seems fair to the taxpayers of Monroeville that the cost of those services be shared by those communities. And I'm not referring to our immediate neighbor of Pitcairn. I think that's a special circumstance because of the relationship through the school district and the long-standing relationship. But we're sending 2 and 3 units on routine fire calls to Duquesne, Pennsylvania. We should be receiving some kind of compensation from the township or from the city of Duquesne. 2 meetings ago, there was a discussion on the police department and the promotion of supervisors. I am curious, and maybe Mr. Little can answer this question, why were more corporals not hired by the police department? It seems that in the past, there have been 9 supervisors, 3 per shift, which help mitigate a lot of the overtime, and we're not anywhere close to that right now.
I'll refer that to Chief Cole. I'll refer that to Chief Cole after you're done with your questions, John.
Okay. The second question I have is, I believe it was Councilman Harvey, but I could be mistaken, Ron, asked if the promotions from corporals to sergeants and lieutenants would alleviate overtime. And it was kind of left with the impression that some folks here felt that promoting corporals to sergeants and lieutenants would alleviate overtime. And I don't believe that to be the case. All we're going to do is have a more expensive supervisor. Now, I don't question the need that we should have sergeants and lieutenants. There should be a very visible chain of command. But promoting sergeants and corporals to sergeants and lieutenants costs the taxpayers money. It doesn't relieve 1 minute of overtime. I am curious, Mr. Mayor, again, maybe Mr. Little can answer this. We lost 2 significant revenue streams from last year, apparently. The hospital dispatch and the use of the hospital using the training center. Can you comment on that? How we lost those, why we lost those?
Well, we did, but there is discussion about bringing that back, and again, Chief Cole could probably extrapolate a little bit better than I can on that, because he's closer to the situation than myself.
Okay. 2 years ago, during the audit process, there was 2 issues that were brought up by the auditor, and I'm curious if we have mechanisms now in place to help control those revenues. The first one was the police overtime that was underbilled and, to the best of my knowledge, never billed to the various out agencies, federal and state agencies, for our detective overtime. Is there a management system in place now to make sure that when we are using our officers for task forces, that overtime is being appropriately billed?
As far as I'm concerned, John, it's being billed out. That's the first I've heard of that
Okay,
it
well,
wasn't.
If you look at the management letter, which would have been in 2013, so it would have been in 2012, there were several $1,000s pointed out of unbilled overtime. I know it because I saw the documentation, and if you don't have it, if you can't find it, I certainly can provide it to you.
No, I'm sure we have it.
There's documentation that shows that this overtime was underbilled, specifically the detective force, but I don't know if it extends beyond that.
Well, again, there's three questions I can refer to Chief Cole after you're done,
Okay.
okay?
The last question also came up in the management letter, and that was the theft and/or underbilling of scrap metal from Public Works. There was Public Works accumulates scrap metals during the course of their operations. And what was happening was, according to the management letter, this was being sold by individuals over there for their personal gain, as opposed to being sold and recouped back into the municipal coffers. Mr. Lowry maybe can touch on that.
Well, you used the word theft.
Well, if you don't own it, and you take the money from the sale of it, I think that's theft. But correct me if I'm
well-
wrong there.
Well, yeah, I don't want to embellish any terms here, but.
Okay,
my
well, it was
understa-
taxpayers' scrap metal that was sold, and where's the money going to now?
Okay, my understanding on that, okay, is that that money was used for a Christmas party that the Public Works Department put on
So the taxpayers pay for municipal employees' parties?
for scrap metal. That is wherever the scrap metal comes from.
The scrap metal comes from our signs.
I mean, I don't know
From
where,
garbage
John,
pickup?
I don't know
No.
where. this-
Garbage
no.
pickup?
No, there should be, if they change a stop sign, the old stop sign becomes scrap metal and it's being sold for scrap. It was being sent to a scrapper using municipal vehicles, using municipal employees, and then that money was not turned back into the municipality. So even if it's being used for Christmas party, it still should go through our treasury department.
Well, there's no question about that should be put into a separate kitty. Now, I wasn't here last year, and as far as you're talking about, as far as the money was not being accounted for in its proper procedure, and there was a theft, I'm not aware of that. Let me answer your question, John, okay? Now, it's a policy of this council, as it was a policy with the previous council, whether or not the money used, a good example on your part, but Mike Adams, I don't know if Mike's here tonight, if Mike Adams can say, okay, I don't know personally where the scrap comes from, but your example, as far as a stop sign, for instance, a used stop sign, all right, good example.
Used brake drums.
Used brake drums, okay, another good example. And all this is scrap.
Right.
Okay, and you are correct. Somewhere down the line, obviously, taxpayers paid for that.
Correct.
Unquestionably.
Correct.
Now, if this council makes a policy decision, no, that money cannot be used for the Public Works Christmas party, then it's not. If they make a policy decision that it is, then it is,
Can I interrupt real quick?
okay?
Last year, I know all the monies from the scrap went back to the municipality because I worked real hard to get money donated for that Christmas party.
Well, I actually did a right-to-know request on the receipts for that, and I recall only getting one receipt, and I believe it was for batteries, but I could be mistaken.
That I can't answer.
You know, if you drive around, every handyman in America now is a scrapper because of the value of metals. Obviously, the stop sign example that I used with you is a large example, and it's a visible example. It's probably also the least valuable example. It's the copper wires, the copper. I don't know what's in a brake drum, but I imagine there's some
They use batteries.
significant
lead.
metal leads that have some value to them, to a scrapper. Do we pay for other Christmas parties out of municipal tax dollars?
No, that's the only one that
So we're paying for Christmas parties using revenue generated from scrap.
I wouldn't call it revenue, John.
There.
Well, it amounts to several $1,000s a year.
To tell you the truth, I don't know what it amounts to. I wasn't here. I have been here in the past, as you
Well, it
well
was
know,
occurring
when
while
the
you were here,
Christmas
too.
party was in December. I wasn't here. But again, if it has to be accounted for, just like you're saying, no question about it, John.
Okay.
It has to be, and nobody can be taking scrap metal that is garnered from the Public Works Department or any other place in this municipality, taking it and taking it to a scrapyard and not accounting for it with Mike Adams, the superintendent of the Public Works Department. Unquestionably. Now, if we get a few $1,000s in here, and I would not call that revenue, all right? If we get a few $1,000s in here too, I don't know what the amount is, to tell you the truth. let's say $2,000, and council says, yes, as has been traditionally done, a Christmas party for all the employees is done at the Public Works Department, then that's their democratic right, legislative right, to say, now, and if they get feedback, let me
Shouldn't there be an ordinance or some type of legislative action that
Well,
allows that to occur?
They can pass a motion,
Okay,
all right? They can pass a motion to that
certainly
effect.
can, but I don't believe I've ever seen one of those.
Maybe not.
Okay.
And maybe there should be, and you may have a point. But my point being is that we're talking about it now. I don't think there's anybody trying to hide how that was, that party down there, the Christmas party, is being funded. Now, the previous council, they didn't like that. That was their call. All right? And this is this council, and again, if they don't like it, they can also rescind that, and there's no Christmas party unless everybody pitches in or whatever the case might be.
If I may interrupt, Mr. Johns is correct. That was corrected because last year
It was
you did-
corrected, and it was a total of $1,200 that I had donated.
Okay, so there should be from last year's receipts now for the scrap metal being submitted.
That I don't, I'm sure there are, but.
Oh, I mean, for this year,
Yeah. For this year, I'm sure.
Okay. Because, my understanding was,
If they've taken it down.
I mean, I probably haven't done so
Sometimes
yet.
don't take it down till
well,
later in the year.
I had talked to several people who had firsthand knowledge of it going down there, and that it amounted to, each trip was
I-
several $1,000s.
I do know in the past that there was a drop-off, a box donated by one of the scrap yards, that if it was filled, people would come and throw old washing machines, refrigerators, whatever in it. Once it was filled, they come pick it up, take it down, and they'd pay us.
And who got that money?
I guess, Monroeville Public Works.
Public Works or Monroeville?
Monroeville. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, so
I'm
somewhere-
just saying I can recall there being a drop-off box.
Okay, so there should be somewhere an income for those. If you're talking about a dumpster that size, it's got to be multiple $1,000s, more than two.
I can't answer.
Okay. Lastly, it was mentioned last week about the animal control officer, and this fund that pays for the shelter. Does that go through the municipal checking account? Is there an accounting for that, or is that an off-the-books account also?
There are no off-the-books accounts.
Okay.
There is money that is collected, if I'm not mistaken, over at the pet store here by, I think her name is Sue Rizzo, one of the volunteers, and there's a donation, and that money is accounted for by Mr. Adams. All right, and there's receipts and everything for the dog food or whatever the case might be.
So that all
goes
gets
on.
run through the budget process, that gets all run through the annual reports?
I'd have to look into that to see how, but it is accounted for, okay? As far as on a columnar sheet, it's accounted for.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave it open for public comment on budget issues only. Seeing none, we'll go over to, oh, sorry.
You want to comment to these people now, or you have to wait till the end?
I will be brief.
Oh, no, well,
Let's just
first of
wait till
all, I
it's
want to get Doug to comment to answer his question.
over.
Hi, my name is Len Young, resident of Monroeville, many, many years. And looked at the budget earlier today on the internet. 254 pages, I believe. Does anybody here have the actual paper budget there? What's that look like? Binders too. Okay.
Yeah, imagine that.
Okay. Maybe I can get one of those sometime. Anyway, page 15A, I think.
You under expenditures?
Yeah, budget expenditure detail. MIS, something about information systems?
Information system.
Yeah, okay. So we have an employee, we're budgeting $118,000 for salary for one employee? Okay,
It's counts. It's not counting benefits.
plus $36,000 for hospitalization, health insurance, plus $24,000 almost in employees' pension insurance, So that's like another $60,000 in perks on top of the $118,000 salary.
That's two employees.
That's two employees, sorry.
That's two employees.
Two employees.
Okay, the first line says salary of regular employee.
Right.
There's an S at the
The
end.
S
There's
is
an
cut
S
off.
It's kind of cut off.
there.
Oh, okay. It looked like a little colon, semicolon there. So there's two employees. All right. So let's say they're each making about $60,000 a year, $59,000 and change. We're still paying out $36,000 for hospitalization and health insurance, plus $24,000 for pension insurance.
For two employees, yes.
Is that a reasonable amount?
That's a relative question, John.
To me, it's unreasonable. To maybe other people, maybe that is reasonable. I don't know.
Reasonable to, reasonable to Monroeville, yes. Reasonable to the private sector, probably not,
Yeah, okay.
okay?
Point made. So, and then we have longevity pay, $2,325 in the budget for that, too. Remember last fall when the budget issue was being talked about, there was some discussion about this longevity pay and the necessity of having it in the first place. The people that work for the municipality enjoy working here. Maybe they really don't need to have that little extra longevity pay.
Maybe they
on-
find it a happy place to work.
That's right.
Maybe that's why we have really good employees.
That's right,
So,
absolutely
yeah, are
right.
you aware that a lot of this stuff that you're quoting is contract benefits? I mean, we can't just go change it.
I have no idea how they come
It
up with
is.
these numbers.
What is?
Contract
Benefits.
benefits. Okay,
Like, police get longevity, but it's in their contract.
okay. Well, next time the contract's up, can we, like, eliminate it, maybe?
If the arbitrator agrees to it,
You have to negotiate it.
We're
Yeah.
currently negotiating the police.
We're trying
In
to
the process.
negotiate.
Okay. You know, $2,300 may not be a big amount when you're talking about a $31 million budget, but boy, you add that all up for all the employees in that, probably could be quite an expense. And then I noticed, I don't have much time to really go through the whole thing, but everybody's got telephone and telegraph expense. I don't know about the telegraph, if that's still around anymore, but certainly for telephone, you got $2,000 budgeted for this department on telephone. People have cell phones. I mean, what does that number constitute? $2,000 for a telephone expense for
it's in
two?
their office. Do you expect them to use their own phone when they're at work?
No, I'm sure that municipality has a telephone system.
It's
Right.
all broke down
And
to
each department's budgeted
department.
for that
Broken
phone.
down.
Yes, each
Service to
department has
their
their own
office.
cost that is associated with the municipalities.
Yeah,
It's
I
put
noticed
into their
that.
department.
So if we add all these telephone expenses,
You get the phone bill.
that's how much the phone bill
Yes.
is. It's a pretty hefty number.
And internet.
Yeah, but you know what,
Internet,
we're a
cable,
municipality, that we
telephones.
have a lot of phone calls come into all the various departments.
Yeah.
Telegraph is internet.
And, yeah, and it's a service we're providing, and it does cost money. You own a business, you know it costs money to operate your stuff.
Yes, that is correct.
I mean, this is just part of doing business for the public.
It would just seem to me that maybe there's some way to save a little bit on some of these expenses.
This is a new system, and we did save some money on that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take that at its word. Speaking of telephone, the school guards. God bless them for going out and guarding our little school children going to and from school. $1,500 telephone expense for school guards. Now, they don't have a payphone out there or extension cord or something.
Where do you see that,
That's page
Mr. Young?
138. Page 138.
Reimbursed for cell phones is what Mr. Cole's saying.
Oh, okay.
Is that what they get?
They get a per diem for cell phone.
Okay.
Because they need to call for help.
Yeah.
When the child, God forbid, get hit by a car or have a medical emergency, we reimburse them for just a period of, it's up to, I think, no more than $50 a person.
Okay.
That's what that's about, but there is a budgeted line item, they can get reimbursed for the phone bill, the cell phones that they have.
Up to $1,500.
Yes.
That's for
Okay.
everybody.
That's for all the school guards. Okay. Like I said, I didn't really have a chance to go through all this stuff, but gee whiz. To a layperson here, I look at some of these numbers, they're sort of boggling. It's just a lot of money. And it's nice that we don't have to raise the taxes this year. because raised them 60% last year. So,
You'd like to remind us of that. I assure you, first time
Well-
in many, many years. I
Mr. Young,
understand.
we raised them, but we didn't spend it.
And Len, that was over a 20-year period that
Before,
taxes were not raised for almost, what, 21 or
Yeah.
22 years?
well, I did a little research on that too, and I don't want to get into, the big
Yeah,
mud
but-
fest here, but we know that the property values increased. As property values
they
increase,
haven't.
millage stays the same,
No,
but as the values increase, you get more money,
how like that?
even with the same millage.
Now, if you've paid attention to what is going on with our court system, we lost quite a bit of real estate value in Monroeville.
Yeah.
Like everybody in Allegheny County has.
Sure.
So that's, you're not telling the whole story. So,
Like everything else has its ups and downs.
yes, it does.
Okay, well, let me end on a good note, if I can do a little public service announcement. The American Legion, Gold Star Post 820, is having a spaghetti dinner November 14th. Benefits Tom Pillage. He's a veteran member of the Post, and it starts at 4 p.m. That's November 14th, I forget, is that a Saturday?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Open to the public.
No, that's not a Saturday.
Come down and get your fill of
That's a
spaghetti and
Friday.
meatballs.
That's
Is that a Friday?
It's a Friday?
Saturday.
Yeah. 14th
I'm sorry,
Friday.
November 14th, anyway, that's the date.
Yeah, it is a Friday, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it's like $7, all you can eat spaghetti, meatballs and stuff. It's at the Post down on Old William Penn Highway. So hope to see everybody there. That's all, thank you.
Thank you.
Once again. Doug, want to come on up? Well, wait a minute.
is everybody done?
Is everybody done? Anybody else would like to address council?
Okay.
Okay, we'll close that proportion of our meeting, and Doug, and then we'll go to our department head. Doug, if you would. I'll do just a couple.
I'd like you to answer Mr. Yakin's 3 questions if you could.
Are you ending the citizens' night portion, sir?
Just on the budget, no, just the budget.
Okay, you're going to the citizens.
We're going to go to Citizen Light, yes.
Thank you.
Can you repeat them to me?
John, can you repeat your questions?
I mean, I could start with the last one and go backwards.
About the,
Supervisors, why we didn't promote more corporals, it would reduce the overtime by.
Mayor, we can't hear.
Okay. The reason,
I'm not running a meeting.
I don't want to get into a debate with him, but the reason that we didn't promote more corporals was we went down the list that we had, we promoted 3 or 4 on the list, and that was as far as we wanted to go. We currently do have 8 supervisors in patrol, not the 9, which we've had in the past. Some of this is contractual because of the way our contract's set up with the supervisor and patrol personnel, how we can put it together, so we have to kind of follow that. So we have 8 in patrol at this time. We have 1 in special operations and 1 in detectives. The reason I want to promote lieutenants and sergeants is that we no longer have an assistant chief position or a second administrative position. So having those other lieutenants and sergeants there, they can take on some of the administrative functions.
And he also,
By and far, obviously, the cost of an assistant chief was in the 150-plus category. That money's nowhere near with promotions. Promotions are only $2,000 a position, per year.
and he also made mention of the money for our folks that were used by other agencies about not being fully
Yeah,
reimbursed.
I'm
and I thought
quite
they
familiar
were.
with that. In the past, what we did with, currently, we do the same thing that we did even in the past. What we do is we fill out forms. Those forms are sent to the agencies that reimburse. There's in some cases, there's an added benefit package. In most cases, that's the case, so the hourly rate's pretty high. It's a time and a half rate plus a benefit package. That's tracked. We tracked it even at the letter he's talking about previously. In the past, whenever the federal agency ran out of money for their funding, we continued to go because we just did it through the regular payroll. We would get refunded later on down the line. In most cases, that's occurred. If it did not occur, we got asset seizure money in its place. And currently, our asset seizure money outweighed any near totally paid times 10 over. Like, we have that all documented too, as to what we actually got in salary that wasn't reimbursed. So the feds have a limit. Let's say in a case, they limit $25,000 for overtime. If we exceeded that, they then would give us more asset seizures when the seizures came in. So that's how that was funded. The previous administration thought that that was not the way to do that. It is all documented and audited. There's no issue there.
Doug, if they, as I recall, if the state is doing something on 22 and requires evening police, dedicated police officers to that detail. They include that in their contract, right? And we're just paid for that officer's time.
That's correct. He's not talking about, he's talking about organized crime drug task force
I thought
overtime.
he was talking about all.
Well, I know what letter he's speaking of, because Manager Silka had to review that and actually come up with a letter explaining that situation to the
I mean, the
previous
same thing
council.
goes with DUI checkpoints. When we send
Yeah.
officers out for that, the
Right.
state gives us a grant.
And they reimburse us. What happens with the federal, though, the difference with the OSADEF, which is the Organized Crime Drug Task Force overtime, which we're involved with cases currently, the difference is we don't know how much overtime it's going to be, Ron. We kind of know that if the DUI checkpoint's going to be this amount of hours this one night, and that's going to be what it's going to be. The Drug Task Force, we can't talk about all the stuff they do, but they go on and on and on, and that's why they have to refund it at the federal level, on and on and on. And how the catch-up to that is the asset seizure account. Any assets or seizures that we don't get the money back for salaries gets reimbursed to us through the asset seizure, really 10 times over. They give us more money than we actually expend. So that's been the case all along. We've documented that from day one. We could pull the records going back 15 years. That was just unfortunately, a political shot, but it is not true. That money was funded. It's always been there. The detectives have always worked that overtime. There's a checks and balance to make sure that they show up for it. There's no issues there at all, Manager. I can assure you that's even dotting the i's and crossing the t's now.
Thank you, Chief.
No problem.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
You know what, folks, for our department heads, I've got bad news. We're going to go to our Citizens Night. I didn't think we would run this late with, on our public comment on our budget issues, so bear with us. We'll move over to our Citizens Night. For those of you signed in, would like to address council. Let me go check this. Yeah.
Where are we at? I lost my place.
I think we're next.
I think
That's our, that's just our sign-in sheet. we
Yeah,
have for
these
budget.
are both for the budget.
Ralph, you can just stand right there and do your stuff. And nobody else has to sign in. I'll just call you up if you want to come on
This
up.
is just on agenda item, right?
This is just on agenda items only, though, okay?
Okay, we can't talk about the temple then.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's on the agenda.
it's on there.
Yeah,
Ralph, you can talk about the temple all night.
okay,
These individuals cannot talk about the temple,
okay.
okay? So you can't ask them questions. They have to yet deliberate on this matter.
All right,
Thank
okay?
you, Bruce.
I just want you to understand that.
I understand.
And the applicant's not here, and I want to make sure this record's clean of any kind of conflicts. But you can go ahead and talk about it all
Well,
you
if
want.
this is going to cause a conflict, I won't do it.
You can make comments.
No, you can talk,
You can
Ralph.
talk
It's
all
up
night.
to you.
We don't have a conflict.
We just can't answer you.
Just don't do it all night.
No, wait till Tuesday night. All right, I'll wait
That's
till
the prudent
Tuesday.
thing to do.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'll open up for our, any citizen would like to address council? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Wait, coming up.
I didn't see you jumping up there, kiddo.
I'm sorry.
If you
Good
could
evening,
sign in,
everyone.
please.
And I did not sign in, but I will sign in
thank
before I leave here. My name's Mary Ellen McConnell, and I'm here in support of the Monroeville Animal Shelter. I'm here to support it, but I'm also here to address some concerns that I have for the shelter. I've been a volunteer at the shelter for 18 months. The only sole caretaker of the cats at the shelter. I've gone 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day when there's kittens there that need to be weaned from their parents and need to be weaned and get food both ways. I don't care. I'm retired. I live 3 miles away from the shelter. This is what I love to do. I enjoy this. Since I've been there, not one time has the ACO gone back and cleaned or even called me and said, I've taken care of the cats back there. Everybody takes care. They've got volunteers that take care of the dogs and everything. I take the cats to be spayed, neutered, vetted, whatever they need. Take them, and I pick them up as well. The shelter does pay for spay and neutering out of the donations. I have 3 cats over there right now. I have 2, as a matter of fact, that need medical care, and I was denied medical care. I've got a cat with an eye that needs surgery for $250. I would have gone and got donations to have this cat done. He was seen at the vet. The vet suggested surgery to have the eye sewn shut. I would do that. I want to adopt this cat so I can get the proper care for this cat. There's the mother cat over there with 6 kittens that needs, I know this seems menial to you, but I'm getting to a bottom point here. These cats need socialization, they need handled, they need their cages cleaned, they need the litters cleaned every day. And that's what I was there for. I bought a shop vac, I cleaned that back room. Before I started, that place was filthy. It smelled like urine. It was extremely bad. I bought crates, large dog crates, put them up on card tables. I've got cats in these big crates instead of small cages. We've had 55 cats so far this year. Majority of them have found homes or have gone to the pet store. Wonderful homes. I get text messages, pictures from these people thanking me for these cats. Now, I'm just concerned, we've got another cat over there with a kink in its neck. Whether it's got a tumor in its ear, I don't know. He was found walking along Northern Pike. It needs to be seen. I was told no. The newspaper stated that the shelter is run by volunteers. Right now, there are only 2 volunteers at the shelter to handle 14 dogs and 12 cats. These volunteers are there 1 day a week, Tuesday, Thursday. But now with the Pomeranians that are there now, I don't know how many times, they're there a week, putting in 3 hours just to clean and feed the shelter area for these dogs. The dogs went and got spayed and neutered on Tuesday. That's wonderful. They're able to be adopted out now. Volunteer number 1's been at the shelter for 15 years. Volunteer number 2, approximately 1 year. Volunteer number 3 would go on the weekends and holidays to clean and feed for the dogs. There was a dog that came in with Addison's disease, and I won't go into what happened. We almost lost the dog due to lack of medical care. The dog got into a fight with another dog. This volunteer took this dog to AVETS to be treated for the bite marks that this dog received. The ACO was on vacation. We had no one to call to ask for permission to take this dog to be vetted. This volunteer was dismissed from the shelter because she did not get proper authorization to take this dog for care. She paid out of her own pocket $250. She now has this dog. She told the ACO that she wanted to adopt this dog. He wanted the dog back at the shelter. She says, I want this dog. He finally let her adopt it. She's terrified that he's going to come back and take this dog from her. This dog has a wonderful home. I'm volunteer number 4. Like I said, 18 months at the shelter, the only one taking care of the cats ever. I put a donation box up at the spay neuter clinic in Penn Hills to collect money for cats only. I did not tell the ACO I was putting this box up there. I should have, I did not. The money that I received since July was a total of $68. I have it all documented, what month, how much was brought in. I have receipts buying Purina Cat Chow, Friskies cat food for these animals. We had food donated from Burton's for these animals, but what came in was high quality, the cats wouldn't eat it, or no kitten food, or it was for special needs animals that could not be fed with these animals that were there. I took it out of my own money, and then I got to the point, well, maybe I can put this container up there. Mike Strom went up last Thursday to take a dog up there, saw the container there, was very upset. I was told not to come back to the shelter, that my services were no longer, I was not to come back, period. That it was in
Mary
my
Ellen,
best interest.
if I can
Well,
interrupt you for a
I'm upset.
second,
Yes, go
okay?
ahead, I'm sorry.
The council and everybody here appreciates you being a volunteer, and we want to hear your comments. But we do not want to hear about anybody's name.
I'm sorry, that's why
Okay?
I started to say ACO.
You can voice your comments
Okay,
on what you believe being a volunteer down there for 18 months.
understand,
Okay, any kind of personnel matters will be handled by me and
understand,
council.
understand. I apologize for using the names, but I want to know why I was dismissed on account of a donation box. Why I was dismissed. Who is taking care of these animals at this time? At this time, I would like to request to adopt Thomas, who has the bad eye. I will pay for his medical. I will get him taken care of. I would like to have the mother cat that's over there that has now, should be weaned from the 7-week-old kittens. I will take her till her milk dries up, get her spayed, and give her a good home. That's all I request. At least I have those two out of the shelter, and I know they have a good home. I have a link to a woman who will adopt Apple with the kink in her neck and provide her with medical for her as well. That's all I ask, is that you take my issues into consideration. Do not close the shelter.
It's not gonna be closed.
I understand that, but it can be run very well with volunteers. They'll be over there with great ideas on how to keep that going.
I'm
And-
pretty sure, I know I'm open to it, I'm sure everybody on
And
council
I
would be
have
as well.
so many ideas how this shelter can be run with hardly anything from, with a part-time person coming in, outsourced maybe for picking up dead deer and dead animals on the road. But please, I want to make sure that these animals, the cats, are taken care of right now because I don't know. I am not permitted back to get my things. I was told, let him know what is there, and he will get it.
Well, Mary Ellen,
So-
let the public know that you did meet with Mr. Little, and we're looking into
Yes,
your
and I did
issues.
meet with Mr. Aracinko and Mr. Little. I did, and they are looking into this. But
And
wanted
I assure
council
you
to
will
know.
address any issues, if they're, whatever they are. And as far as you volunteering goes, I can't see why you can't continue, but we'll get into that privately. I don't think that you want to get
That's
all
fine.
that out here.
No, that's fine. Can
right now,
I
but
adopt?
You know, we're not ignoring you. We're not
I know.
ignoring your issues.
I know. Can I adopt those two? Can I make arrangements to adopt those two?
I don't have Tim, there's
No,
no
I
issue.
I don't see a problem with that at all.
That's not an issue. That's a non-issue.
I mean, that's what we want out of the animal shelter, the people to adopt the
Yeah.
I know,
the animals. I don't
I
see a
know,
problem
but
with that.
it's the issue that I'm not permitted there to get.
Mary Ellen, what's the proper procedure for the adoptions?
Well, they're really, with the cats, all we ask is if we get that they're never free, ever given free. We would like to get back the spay or the neuter cost and then the rabies shot that is given to these animals from the shelter. That's all we ask. And if they want to give a little bit more, that's fine. If they want to bring a bag of cat food with them. I had a couple adopt a cat. They sent me a $25 gift certificate for Giant Eagle. I went down and bought more food for the cats. I mean, it's just the wonderful people there. Now, the dogs, I don't deal with the dogs. I don't do anything with the dogs. All I know is I'm speaking for the one woman, but the cats are my concern right now. Are they being taken care of?
Well, again, we're addressing your issues, and as far as you adopting both those kittens or cats, whatever, if they're full grown,
Yeah, and I
there'll be
will
no
pay
issue with
whatever-
that. You can contact him and
Okay.
work
I
out
mean, I
whatever
will
we gotta
pay
work
for
out.
whatever-
I don't know any procedure on that stuff either, to be honest with you.
Well, I was just concerned with what's happening there,
Well-
with my ability.
Well, again, we're addressing them, and I assure you, we'll get back to you on that. And then again, just contact him.
And I thank you
For
for
the
your time.
cats.
I really do, yesterday
Okay.
and today. Thank you so
If
much.
you could sign
Thank
in,
you.
please.
Oh, Sharon, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, okay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we'll leave the floor open for anybody who would like to address council. Seeing none, we'll close that proportion of the meeting, and we'll go